We are going live. We are going live. We are going live. We are going live. We are going. Are we there yet?
No, it's still thinking. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's live now.
It's live now. You that
It is
watch
still.
the show every week, we appreciate you. If you're wondering why this is so wide, it's because I am testing the Sigma 24mm f/35 DGDN Contemporary, and watch what it does. It can track my face, and it is on the Panasonic S5 right now. I usually shoot on Sony, but today it's just like, I just want to shoot on Panasonic. They're just doing a great job right now. So, okay, now we'll actually get into it.
Fantastic. It's doing a great job too.
Yeah, I usually think it does, and I don't know. I sort of like this perspective, but also at the same time, I don't know if I'll stick with it. But that's the lens that you got for Hasselblad doesn't really offer the same perspective, does it?
No, no, not quite. So, um, Hasselblad recently sent us the XH converter, which is a speed booster, although technically they're called focal reducers. Uh, People commonly know these as speed boosters because of the popularity of the Metabones adapters, which Chris was talking about earlier on. Their brand is called Speed Booster, and it's kind of like the whole jacuzzi hot tub thing, right? Everybody starts calling them jacuzzis. So, but this is in fact a focal reducer. And for those that don't know what a focal reducer is, well, basically it's the exact opposite of a teleconverter. When a teleconverter will do is it will basically enhance your focal length, but it will decrease the maximum aperture of the lens. What a speed booster will do is it will reduce your focal length and actually give you a brighter aperture. Um, it's not really as common for photographers to use as videographers. Videographers love these things. And one of the reasons why they became so popular, in fact, was because there was a speed booster that took Canon EF mount down to micro four thirds, and videographers loved using the Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8, and it turned it into like an f1.1 lens. It was absolutely ridiculous. Um, but for some reason, Hasselblad has decided to come out with a speed booster for their X mount cameras, like the massive and super heavy X1D Mark II they have here. It also work on the 907X as well.
Jeez.
And yeah, this thing is huge. It makes my Pentax feel like a toy. This is
What?
absolutely massive. Yeah. Um, but basically, what this does is it will allow Hasselblad users to use H mount lenses, which were used on their like the H6D cameras, and use them on their X1D2, which actually has a slightly smaller medium format sensor. It's the same sensor that Fujifilm has in their cameras. Bigger than full frame, not quite true medium format, but still a bigger sensor.
For those of you that aren't familiar with what true medium format is, some film geeks will say, "Oh no, it's only 6:7." That's not true. What we're talking about in digital medium format is 6:4:5.
Hmm.
There are very few cameras with true 6:4:5 sensors out there. This is like a medium area in medium format and between full frame 35 millimeter. So
Yep.
they also call it full frame medium format, but
Hmm.
just to uh, get some folks on board with what that
Sure,
means.
absolutely. But yeah, so basically what this will do is it will allow Hasselblad users to use the H-mount lenses, which were designed to be used with a larger sensor. You can put them on these smaller medium format cameras, and what it will do is it will basically take out the crop that that smaller medium format sensor will introduce, and it will allow you to retain the same field of view and give you a greater aperture using it on their new cameras. So it's pretty cool. So basically you're like doubling the amount of lenses or tripling the amount of lenses you can use on this camera. It's really pretty neat. So just for example, the lens that they sent me was a H mount 100 millimeter f2.2. With this adapter, it effectively turns this lens into an 80 millimeter f1.8. So it's really not too shabby at all. And I'll actually show you the adapter right here. I don't know if you can see this. So this section right here is the adapter. Um,
Jeez.
it's a chunky boy. And the reason why it's so big and so heavy, it weighs over a pound, is because it's got a lot of glass in there. There are 5 elements in 3 groups in this thing, so that it can basically really focus that light down onto the smaller sensor. So that's basically what it does, and then you just connect your other lens to the body. So yeah, it's a big camera to carry around, but it works. I'm going to put that in quotation mark. It works.
Hold on, you have a wrist strap on that thing?
It's a neck strap.
Oh, I was about to say, I'm like, man, if you put a wrist strap on that thing, it'll break your wrist.
It will snap your wrist off in a heartbeat.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So what I want to quickly do is kind of really go. This is a first impressions. This isn't our full review by any means. I received this late last week. I used it yesterday, and I did generate about 50,000 more gray hairs than I had before I took this camera out. It works. I will tell you that. Let's just go through what we'd normally do in the first impression. So, like build quality wise, this thing is a beast. You know, it's Hasselblad. It's full metal. It's super solid. It's well built. It's weather sealed. I think David could put it in a sling and take down Goliath with it. It's got that much mass to it. Right? So you know you're going to have it on this already heavy camera. It's going to make this already heavy camera even heavier. In terms of ease of use, it's as simple as you have to update the firmware on your camera and on the compatible H mount lenses. And once that's done, you get full digital connectivity between the converter and the lens and the camera. So it's all controlled by the dials. You know, your aperture and your autofocus is controlled by the camera.
So there are no controls at all on the adapter, no switches or anything?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just completely smooth. Yeah,
Okay.
nothing on there at all. Everything's controlled by the camera, and you'll get your EXIF readouts and all that kind of good stuff. So all of that's retained.
And the adapter is weather sealed?
It does have a gasket on the back. How well weather sealed it is, I mean, I took it out. It had been raining. It was drizzling, but you know, being that this combo is probably about $14,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't too comfortable taking it out into a downpour.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the kicker. This, now I don't know if you remember my review of this camera, Chris. I likened it to a supercar GT touring car that was beautifully constructed and felt great, but that it had an engine of a Ford Pinto in it, because the autofocus was so slow. This speed booster takes this slow camera and makes it even slower. Yeah, when it came to autofocusing, I would say an average time to get focus for a shot was between 3, 4, 5 seconds.
Hold on. What lighting situations were you in?
It was overcast and sunny, so I tried it in 2 different lighting situations.
All right, let me know when you want me to bring the photos up.
Sure, absolutely. Getting this thing to autofocus is one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced. It doesn't help that this camera is only contrast only autofocus. It doesn't have any face detection. And so in an overcast condition, just trying to get focus, trying to get focus, it'd pull back out, it'd go back in, pull back out. Then it would finally say it had focus and it still wouldn't be in focus. So you could easily spend 30 seconds just trying to take one picture. And that did happen multiple times yesterday. So, I mean, for me, that performance, just from my first use, it really, really was aggravating.
I can imagine. Jeez.
Yeah. The other issue, and if you want to bring up the pictures, feel free, man. One thing I will say right off the bat is when all the gods align and you get an image, good grief. The images make me want to have these cameras babies, right?
Can you see these?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
When you get it right, when the camera gets it right, the images are absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's fantastic that you can use some of their older lenses on these cameras. Now, that does introduce another problem. One thing I noticed when I was testing this camera before is the lenses used to have really bad chromatic aberration. And these older H lenses have really bad chromatic aberration as well.
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't help is this speed booster actually it makes the chromatic aberration worse.
That's what I figured it was doing.
Yeah, it takes it and it just takes it to a whole nother level. And what's just really frustrating to me is when you consider the cost of this system, and I'm seeing chromatic aberration that's worse than an old, like I think I said to you yesterday, an old Pentax SMC lens that would cost $50. That's an issue. That's something that needs to be worked on in a big way by Hasselblad. But you can see some of these images; they look absolutely beautiful. These are just straight out of camera JPEGs, and the colors are fantastic.
Yeah, I was
Um,
looking at that yesterday. The colors are really nice, and like the sensor's doing a great job, but I agree with you. I do see some of those problems.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, I sent you a couple of images. I sent you an image of a whole scene, and then one that's cropped in to show just how bad the chromatic aberration really is on this camera.
I'm trying to remember what image that
I'm
was.
looking down here. There we go.
Oh,
See the
here we go.
lights and trees is the main image.
So this is the full image.
That's the full image. Yeah. And in fact, you can even see the CA in this. Yeah. Look at the
Ooh,
fringing. Look at that fringing, man. Um, I even took these images into Lightroom and into Capture One and tried to remove this. And this was after I tried to remove it. It
really?
absolutely could not get a handle on it. And, I don't know how much more CA this converter is introducing, but it's a massive problem. Massive problem. It's almost shot ruining in some circumstances. It's really surprising just how bad the CA is.
I mean, it basically turns it into a great black and white camera.
It does. It does for sure. But if you own Hasselblad and you buy this is something you're going to be fighting in a big way. There's purple fringing, there's green fringe. There was one shot in here in this set. There's a ton of green fringing. You can even see it around the statue. If you look around the crease in his knee that's bent, you can see it.
Yeah, you can also see it on the shoulder.
You can see it on the shoulder. You can see it around his ear, up at the top, around his hairline. Yeah, look how bad that is.
Man, I'm a
That's
blind man and I can see this.
that's horrific. And I mean, that's coming from a nearly $14,000 setup right here.
Yeah.
It's really pretty terrible. There is also an interesting issue, and the first time it happened, I wanted to crawl up into a ball and die a little bit because of the noise it made, and it's something I'm going to have to reach out to our contact at Hasselblad about. But at f1, which is what the enhanced focal stop would be, or f-stop would be, it works great. It's a little bit soft. It's not the sharpest, but and that's kind of expected with a speed booster. But it still works. Now, when I switched the camera to between f2 and f4, that black image, which is that's what I got, and nothing I could do could fix it. And the noise that was coming from the leaf shutter in the lens was horrific. It was absolutely. It sounded like it was almost like it was grinding. So I don't know if that's a firmware issue that's causing that between those F values, or if it's a problem with the adapter itself. I need to reach out to Hasselblad and talk to them about that. So
I think it's actually like a metaphysical issue, like you're photographing how dark someone's soul is, and it's capturing just that.
there you go. I'm
Yeah.
going to have some explaining to do to my wife after the show because of that. Um,
I figured.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of disappointing because the whole point of this is to be able to use these older lenses that maybe aren't as fast as fast lenses, and it's jamming up, and it's really frustrating. So that was another point of frustration for me yesterday as well, because basically I could shoot at f1, f1.8, and f4 and up, and that was it. Everything in between there was lost.
See, this has been a problem with me in medium format cameras for a really long time. Like a lot of the newer stuff from Fujifilm, like you've tested it, I've tested it, it's great. We
Hmm.
don't have that problem at all.
Right.
But like phase one stuff with
Hmm.
Schneider lenses, they're always all the reps are saying like, "Oh yeah, these are the best," and like, you got a digital transitions that specializes in them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're the best," and I'm like, "No, they're not. There are so many problems with these things.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what are you talking
absolutely.
about?" And I don't understand. Like, maybe they develop these things for photographers to stop them down, but photography's changed.
Hmm.
Like it makes no sense to always shoot stop down,
Right.
especially in low light. Like digital has just come so far.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. There's so much more you can do now.
Yeah. So these are images, and I agree with you. These the bokeh's gorgeous here. The colors is gorgeous.
Hmm.
Um yeah, the skin tone rendition is great too. Like that's about the sensor and the lens working together, but
Right.
uh if it takes you 13 seconds to do this and you're hand holding and it's freezing out there, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it was freezing because like that looks like a spring jacket right there.
Yeah. It wasn't freezing, but it was, it was drizzling. It's not something you want to stand outside in for too long.
And meanwhile, you made poor Sam do that. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it's 27 versus it being like 27 degrees here in New York.
Right. Yeah. And
I
not only
wouldn't
that,
want to do that.
you remember how heavy this camera is as well with these converters and lenses as well. It's not a fun experience. Not at all.
Yeah. You should make sure that you show everyone your right arm to show how different the muscle is developed over there versus like this one
There
because you
you
had to
go.
work with it. Yeah. Oh man, this
Yeah.
is kind of disappointing. So, I mean, um, how much testing did you do in lower lights?
I spent outside with it yesterday. It was a lot darker than it looked in those pictures. Um, I was out there for probably an hour before the rain came back in and kind of forced us back inside until the sun came out later on. Um, in those overcast conditions, it was almost unusable, honestly. It was really that bad in terms of trying to get focus. Um, with it just being like a dull gray overcast day, the contrast detect system in this camera just wasn't having it at all. And with the speed booster, it was just amplifying that issue.
Now, do you think that you would be confident enough manually focusing this camera and lens combo faster than the autofocus performs?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's great that it can autofocus, but I think you'd be better off just manually focusing, honestly.
Yeah, but then think about the physics of that thing. Like you got a big lens, right? And you're
Hmm.
here and like uh you're twisting and you're twisting and when you twist, you keep them you create a motion
Hmm.
where it's not image stabilized. So you're going to get camera
Right.
shake and your focusing is going to get thrown off.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And those cameras can do focus peaking if I remember correctly.
They can do focus peaking. Yes, they
Yeah.
can.
And the menu system is very good.
Menu system's fantastic. The EVS is gorgeous. The rear display is one of the best I've ever seen. It's such high resolution that when you're focus peaking and when you're looking through the live view, it's beautiful. So manually focusing on this lens is definitely on this combo is definitely doable.
I just don't know if I'd want to do that all the time.
No, no, I wouldn't either, especially when this adapter is like $950.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
know.
try something out. Like
Hmm.
something in your room, turn the camera on, try to focus on it, see how it does because I believe that's your bedroom, right?
Yep, it sure is.
Uh let's see how it is on lower light. Let's see how quickly you can focus on something. So you're starting.
Now.
Wow, I hear that. Oh my god.
And it just gave me a false focus positive as well.
Oh my god.
So it showed that it was in focus. The box went green, and it was still completely out of focus.
That's old school film level.
Yeah. Here we go. I'll try it again.
No.
There. That is from a modern medium format mirrorless camera. It's crazy, Chris. It's really bad.
How much is that adapter?
The adapter is $950. Yep. And it's mated to a lens that's $4,800, and it's attached to a camera that's $5,750.
That lens, is that price new, correct?
Correct.
See, I don't know if I were an owner of this camera.
Hmm.
I don't know why I would then go on eBay to buy that lens secondhand and then go buy this adapter for $1,000.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Especially when there is already a Hasselblad 80mm f, is it 1.9?
I think it's a 1.9, yeah.
So 1.9, so you're only losing like hardly anything in terms of your f-stop. I've been trying to wrap my head around that as well. I mean, I can kind of see it if you've been using Hasselblad for a long time, and you have a large H series collection of lenses, and you don't want to go out and spend $4,000 on per lens to rebuild your collection. I could see you maybe getting this adapter, um, you know, just to put your lens collection to use. If you're just buying into this system, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I'm also wondering because like at f2 that is very difficult for medium format to focus, although
Hmm.
the GF series can do it pretty well.
Right.
Um, I'm just also thinking about like uh it being older motors on those lenses and then going
Hmm.
through the adapter and then through the camera. I don't know. I feel like I don't know, you can do more sadistic things to yourself than this, but like this is pretty sadistic.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't. I think I told you yesterday, but I haven't mentioned it. One image I timed myself yesterday from the time I half pressed the shutter until the time it got focus was 11 seconds.
Jeez, yeah, you did say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there was another thing I was gonna say about autofocus, and now I'm forgetting what it was. I remembered it, and geez. So also that's a 100 millimeter lens you said,
It's a 100mm f2.2. Yeah.
and when you put it on that camera, it becomes an 80 millimeter f1. Is that
8.
what you said?
F1.8. Yeah.
F1.8. So that almost brings the system in line with like the 645 format.
Yes. Yeah, that's essentially what it's doing. It will essentially give you the same field of view as you would get on the 645 format.
Which is saying a lot because I mean, look
Yeah.
at the images that you were just shooting, especially the
Right.
wonderful photos of Sam. Um, I don't know if I would want to do that because, okay, you're getting that performance, but the cost benefit is, uh, one, you have to develop your muscles better, which might be good for someone in the pandemic that's not getting a lot of workouts.
That's very true.
Uh, but like,
That's the exact noise I was making yesterday when I was shooting with this thing.
I don't know, man. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, Hasselblad? Like, okay, we should also elaborate a little bit more. Sometimes we do run into faulty units.
Hmm.
And we let manufacturers know that, and then we also tell them like, hey guys, like this is a faulty unit. Can we have another one? We'll trade this one back to you guys. But we do have to mention that like one of the units that we had was really bad. And
Yep.
usually they're like, please don't do that. I'm like, no, we have to. It's editorial policy. I'm actually thinking this might be not a bad unit. I think it's a characteristic,
Hmm.
partially because those lenses are just so old.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very old. They almost sound like they're screw driven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little sad.
Yeah.
Let's look at this. Everyone's in the chat and they are dumbfounded at how slow that was. Um, I think I'm just going to do the next segment in the language of the Hasselblad lens. I'm going to call it. Let's see on Facebook. Someone laughed. Someone
I mean, it is pretty comical when you think about it.
Yeah, I know. It really is.
It's even more so when you factor in that we're just about to be talking about a brand new medium format camera that will leave this in its dust.
Yeah, I know. But before you do that, can you bring the camera up one more time
Yep.
and try to shoot the screen and let's see what happens, please?
Oh man, I won't even be able to get focused. I'm too close. Let's see. Here we go.
I believe in you.
I focus on something behind the screen here. I've got to turn it on. It takes a while to boot.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
There we go.
4. Okay.
Can you hear that?
Uh-huh.
And then it just gives me an error right there. Not focusing. Yep,
Oh, Lord.
not focusing.
Is it better with the middle focusing point?
It's about the same everywhere you try.
Oh.
Yeah. And I tried to get focus 3 times on an object but next to my window, and it gave me false positive each time.
No.
Yep.
So far, it's a do not buy.
It's a do not buy right now. Unfortunately, I had high hopes for it. I was excited to test it out, but it's just become a major source of frustration.
This, we don't know yet, but I mean, if this were me reviewing it, sometimes I can be very harsh. Like this would be a 1 or 2 or maybe no star review.
Yeah, if I was to review this right now, I would be right down there at the very bottom end of the review score.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to let you folks know, like there have been times where we've given items no stars. It's rare, but we can be that way. Okay. That was stressful to hear, man.
Yeah, you should have been out there shooting with it yesterday.